As you see, 9 states, polls there will be closing in just over half an hour in those 9 states. We've got results now from Georgia. Senator Barack Obama, projected by CNN to be the winner of the Democratic primary, and by so far it looks like very strong numbers, and a 3-man race in the Republican primary in Georgia. Let's turn to my colleague right now, Roland Martin. Roland, those rather interesting exit polls on the Democratic side. Senator Obama looks extraordinarily strong. He was expected to win in Georgia, but those numbers are huge.
Looks strong, especially among young voters. 18 to 39 made up 37% of the voters. He destroyed her in those categories. In fact, if you look at the numbers, among those 18-24, he gets 81%. 25-29, he gets 70%. 25-29, I mean 70%. I mean, those are amazing numbers. And so you're talking about people who more than likely have not been involved in the political process in the past several years.
The big positive for Senator Clinton in your judgment?
Well, I think the big positive for her is a matter of how do I maintain winning congressional districts. I mean, so you could talk about winning a state, but the question is, where did she win in Georgia? Was she able to pull certain delegates out? But she also knew going in that she wasn't going to compete strongly there. Her base was really Northeast.
Jamal Simmons, the Republicans, it's a three-man race. This thing is really very, very close. What do you think is going to be determinant, taking your very best judgment from what we've been able to divine? We don't care that it's early for you. You've got to divide.
Right. It's a little bit early, but I think we'll see what happens with Romney. Huckabee looks like he's holding on. He's not going anywhere. Romney's holding on. McCain is not. Looks like he's not dominating the way everyone thought he was so far. But, you know, again, it's early. We'll see what happens later tonight.
Let me ask you the same question I asked Roland Martin, Paul Begala. What is the great positive, if there is one, in the state of Georgia for Senator Clinton?
That the primary's over.
Yeah.
That's the only positive. No, she got her butt kicked there. There's nothing good that comes from getting your rear end whipped like that. But so she's got to rock on. You know, she'll go down the street to Arkansas, where she was the first lady. I'm sure she hopes to do better there. But, you know, you can't, what did LBJ say from Texas? You can't shine a cow patty? I'm cleaning it up here because we're a family network.
Yes, you did.
But I ain't going to shine that one, man.
But a very accurate...
you know, Lou, on this whole issue of Huckabee and Romney and McCain, I think the thing we're overlooking is the whole notion with conservatives of also electability. This whole assumption that somehow they will leave Huckabee and go to Romney, you can't deny the reality of electability. That was one of the issues early on with Senator Clinton versus Obama. Will Democrats see her as more electable than Obama? I think that also plays a part in it. Gloria made an excellent point. Likability is key, but electability as well in November matters.
The problem with that, it seems to me, Bill, is electability, likability, we don't know about until after the election.
Well, no, I think a lot of people have said with, I asked some top Democrat consultants, I won't say who they are, who they'd least like to run against, and it was unanimous. McCain is the guy they'd least like to run against, because he draws, you know. You could conceivably have Bob and Bill Bennett voting for the same presidential candidate for the first time in American history. That's worth a party anyway.
I mean, look, I even have my callers to them saying I'm considering McCain, and I'm talking to a nearly all-black audience on WVON in Chicago. So when you hear people say that, in terms of that he is the kind of Republican candidate that is unlike what you've seen in the past, that's an interesting thought.
And I said might, but there is this weird thing going on. Conservatives right now, very, very angry at McCain. Will they settle down? I don't know.
I'm still trying to sort through the idea that Ann Coulter would vote for Senator Hillary Clinton. That may be the lead for the past week.
Let's ask that question again after the election's over.
I'm sorry?
Let's ask that question again.
We're going to be asking a lot of questions throughout this night.
That's what that was.
That requires a professional. None of us is. So.
Well, I know a professional right now is taking a look at these early numbers. We've got some additional numbers for you. Wolf Blitzer, bring us up to date.
Lou, thanks very much. Let's take a closer look and see the actual votes that are coming in from Georgia right now. Remember, we're standing by for many more states to be closing at the top of the hour, about a half an hour or so from now. Right now, here's what we're seeing in Georgia. Less than 1% of the vote is actually in Georgia. On the Democratic side, Barack Obama with 64%. We we've projected that he will be the winner. Hillary Clinton at 30%. Barack Obama doing very, very well in Georgia, and we project he will be the winner. Let's actually take a look at the hard numbers that we have in Georgia right now. And as you can see, it's a tiny, tiny percentage. 1,375 for Obama, 641 for Clinton. But take a look at the delegate estimates right now that we're seeing. Among the delegates, Georgia has 87 delegates at stake today, 16 superdelegates who are elected officials and other party leaders. But this is a proportional distribution of the actual delegates. Right now, we're projecting that Barack Obama, we've already allocated, will have about 12 if you include the superdelegates, to Hillary Clinton's 5 in these delegate estimates that we have. But remember, this is early in this delegate process. 87 delegates are at stake today in Georgia. We're watching this all-important delegate estimate as we continue through the night. Let's take a look at what's happening right now on the Republican side. We have not been able to project a winner. We see a three-man race, though, right now with less than 1% of the precincts reporting. McCain with 36%, Huckabee and Romney both with 30%, Ron Paul coming in with 3%. Let's take a look. This is very, very early. As I said, less than 1% of the precincts reporting. McCain with 669 votes to Mike Huckabee's 568, 556 for Romney, 53 for Ron Paul. In terms of the delegate estimates, we have not been able to make a projection yet on how many delegates each of these Republican candidates will get. There are 72 delegates at stake in Georgia right now on the Republican side, 3 superdelegates as well. Remember, we're watching the delegates as we estimate the delegates. This is the all-important part of this story. We'll take a quick break. Much more of our special coverage. We're counting down to the top of the hour when polls will be closing in several more states. Perhaps we'll be able to make some projections then. Stay with us. You're watching our live coverage from the CNN Election Center.
Well, we're back with our Super Tuesday primary election coverage, and amongst the factors influencing turnout, unfortunately tonight, in Memphis, Tennessee, the border there with Tennessee and Arkansas, some very severe storms. Let's turn to Chad Myers in the CNN Weather Center in Atlanta. Chad, what can you tell us about what's going on?
Lou, it was described as a large and dangerous tornado that moved just south of Memphis Airport right through Germantown. This was on the ground for a very long time. There's a storm about 2 hours ago. It did put down a large and dangerous tornado with a lot of damage. Damage to the airport, damage to the FedEx facility, damage to other buildings as we get toward Germantown and Eads. Also, another town that was hit was Clinton, Arkansas, up here to the north of Conway. This storm was on the ground for miles and miles, and it finally did make a landfall, a hit, if you will, on a big city, the town, if you will, of Clinton, Arkansas. We do know of major damage around that town as well. People were still at the polls at this time. There's a lot of power out in all of these areas, especially south and southeast Memphis, and the polls are still open, at least in some spots. Could you imagine what power out is going to do to the facilities there and to the voting with all those people on the ground? And we do know there are some injuries as well. A lot of people caught out in this storm as it was on the ground for a very long time. Lou?
Well, I hope the fact that we have not heard of any casualties there, it will augur well for the safety of those folks in both Arkansas and Tennessee as those storms have set down. Thank you very much, Chad Myers from the CNN Weather Center. Let me turn to you, David Gergen. These numbers are fascinating on the Georgia primary side for the Republicans, Romney, McCain, and Huckabee. It's starting to look like McCain, early votes, just very early, starting to pull away just a little bit from what had been an absolute symmetrical division there amongst the three.
Well, if he can pull this out, it would be important to him because, you know, the polls there have shown at a three-way race where he was actually not ahead. So if he were to win Georgia, there's a fairly big military contingent there with a very strong military tradition in Georgia, which would help him. But again, I think the test for him tonight is how many Republicans start to rally around him. Is he going to be a unifying candidate? Are Republicans prepared to embrace him, or are they still going to be splitting their votes? And I think that's what we're going to be looking for in Georgia and well beyond Georgia and all these other states.
You know, Wolf, one of the things that is striking about John McCain over what? What, I'm sorry. A wolf, I'm sorry.
But we're going to listen to you anyway.
I apologize, Mr. Dobbs.
We're going to listen to you.
Well, Mr. Dobbs, this is how I see it. John McCain has yet to win 40% in any state, and he's not winning 40% in Georgia. That's not good for unifying the party. Obviously, it's good for him to be ahead, but 40% is not much of the vote.
McCain would like to be the presumptive nominee coming out of tonight, and given the fact that the Republican primaries are set up in such a way that they're a winner-take-all primaries, he could do that, and that is what he wants to walk away with. His problem, Lou, is, I think, that he told the voters that he was the presumptive nominee, and that's probably never a good thing to do to voters before they vote.
That seemed, as he said it, to be a mistake. You think it was?
I think voters don't like to hear it. I mean, voters didn't like to hear to see the sense of inevitability around the Hillary Clinton campaign. She was sort of running as an incumbent, and that worked against her. I don't think they like to see it in their
That's certainly no longer an issue, is it?
No.
The dirty little secret, Louis, he needs to raise money, even at this point in the campaign. So he was in Massachusetts, not just to get in Mitt Romney's face. He wanted to get in Mitt Romney's face a little bit, but he was there for a fundraiser. He was in New York City, a state where one poll had him at 60%. He's in New York City. Why is he spending the night in New York City when you have these competitive conservative states out there? Again, he had a fundraiser. But there are many people in his campaign, and I asked him this question. I said, where is the line between confidence and being overly cocky? And he said, well, I did campaign in Missouri, but he made one stop. And his people out in those states were saying, one's not enough. Could you come back again and do more? But John McCain spent the last 48 hours up in the Northeast, states that are almost certain to go blue come November. And if he loses a very close one in Georgia or Missouri tonight, they may regret that schedule of having him up in the Northeast.
That's an interesting point. And as we look at these exit polls that Soledad O'Brien and Bill Snyder were examining earlier, the huge preponderance of the black vote that turned out for Barack Obama, the greater number of votes in the Democratic primary as well in Georgia. Do you expect that to hold up nationwide?
You mean have such a heavy proportion?
Absolutely.
Of black vote? No, I think Paul Begala has pointed out that Georgia, among all the states in the country, has one of the highest percentages of black population of anybody.
No, but I'm saying, do you expect to see that kind of black vote in totality for Barack Obama? 88%.
That's a more interesting question, and I think we're going to be watching. Well, I'm sorry I didn't get it first time. You know, Wolf, I'm sorry I didn't get it first time. That they.
We'll get back to you in just a minute, Jeffrey. Let's turn. Go ahead.
If he can pull out 8 to 9 to 1 advantages in the black community, that really suggests that there could be that it could be very, very hard for Hillary Clinton to unite her party if she rolls over him in some fashion. They've got to be very respectful now if that's the kind of support he's getting. But I thought, actually, Lou, what I was more struck by was how many white votes he got. That number going up, especially winning white men. You know, for a Georgia, the southern state, black candidate, 50%. Winning white men, that's remarkable.
It was 50%.
And a big change in South Carolina. I mean, he only got 24% of the black vote of the white vote in South Carolina. Now he's just about double that in Georgia. If he can keep that up across the South or across the rest of the country, he's in great shape.
This is where I got to say something in terms of what I consider one of the great prejudices that still remains in America, and that's the Northeast prejudice towards the South. They still have these views, many folks. I'm not saying anyone at this table or anyone in this network, but the reality is that the South is an urban, far more sophisticated and cosmopolitan place than it has been in years previous. And I know that you didn't intend it that way, but the fact is, I can't imagine any of my Southern friends, for example, viewing a black man any different than a white man.
Well, I'm a native Southerner. I come from North Carolina. And I say, thank goodness we have reached the day when a black candidate can win a white male vote in the South. But I can tell you,
amen, brother.
Just a few years ago, that would not have happened. It's remarkable progress.
I'm going to live with what we got today, and I'm going to rejoice in what we got today.
That's right. But Georgia has changed. Yeah. Georgia has changed a lot. You know, it's become a much more when the walls came down between the races. between blacks and whites in the South. The wall started to come down between the South and the rest of the country. And the South is, as you say now, has become much more like the rest of the country.
Can I say something else about Georgia that's really interesting as we look this evening, and that is white women, because that's her support. Hillary Clinton won in Georgia with white women 59 to 39. That's going to be the supporters that, if she can win this nomination, who are going to take her through to the nomination. She is depending on those women.
Okay. As Senator Barack Obama at this point is depending upon black voters. We're going to continue with our coverage here of Super Tuesday. We'll be right back. Stay with us.